The story of the Celts is one of mystery, complexity, and enduring legacy. Often shrouded in myth and legend, the true origins and development of the Celtic peoples have been the subject of intense debate and controversy. Defining who the Celts were is no easy task, as their identity is intertwined with a variety of linguistic, cultural, and archaeological elements that vary across time and space. The term Celt itself is a modern label, first used in the 18th century, applied retroactively to a group of Iron Age tribes with shared cultural traits. Scholars often debate the extent to which these tribes saw themselves as part of a unified group. The Celts never formed a single nation or empire. Rather, they were a collection of loosely connected tribes, each with its own customs, language, and leadership. Linguistically, the Celtic languages form a branch of the wider Indo-European family, but pinpointing the exact origins and spread of these languages has proven challenging. Archaeologically, identifying distinctively Celtic artifacts and sites is equally complex due to the overlapping and evolving nature of European cultures in prehistoric times. The study of the Celts has relied heavily on both linguistic analysis and archaeology. Celtic languages, still spoken today in regions like Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, provide crucial insights into the connections between ancient tribes. Archaeological discoveries, from intricate metalwork to monumental hill forts, offer a window into the social structure, economy, and daily life of the Celts. To understand the Celts, one must begin with their prehistoric roots. The origins of the Celts can be traced back to the wider Indo-European migrations that shaped much of Europe's linguistic and cultural landscape. The Celts are believed to have descended from the Indo-European peoples, a group that migrated into Europe around 2000 BC. These migrations brought with them new languages, technologies, and social structures, which would later form the foundation of Celtic culture. The Indo-Europeans introduced the use of horses and chariots, innovations in metalworking, and a pantheon of gods that would evolve into the distinct deities of the Celtic world. Before the rise of what we now recognize as Celtic culture, Europe was home to a variety of Bronze Age societies. The Urnfield culture, which flourished around 1300 to 800 BC, is often seen as a precursor to the Celts. This culture was characterized by the practice of cremating the dead and burying their ashes in urns, a tradition that would continue into the Celtic period. The spread of metalworking techniques, particularly in bronze and later iron, laid the groundwork for the technological advancements that would define the Celtic era. The Hallstatt culture marks the earliest stage of what we can distinctly call Celtic civilization. Emerging in Central Europe around 1200 BC, this culture is named after the site of Hallstatt in modern-day Austria, where significant archaeological finds have provided a wealth of information about this period. The Hallstatt culture developed in the regions surrounding the Alps, benefiting from the natural resources of the area, particularly salt, which was a highly valuable commodity. The wealth generated from salt mining and trade allowed the Hallstatt people to develop a complex society with distinct social classes, ranging from powerful chieftains to skilled artisans and farmers. The Hallstatt society was hierarchical, with a ruling elite that controlled trade, resources, and religious practices. These elites were buried in elaborate graves, often accompanied by chariots, weapons, and jewelry, reflecting their status and power. The economy was largely based on agriculture, supplemented by mining, metalworking, and trade with neighboring cultures. The Hallstatt people were skilled metalworkers, particularly in iron, which began to replace bronze as the material of choice for tools and weapons. The introduction of iron significantly improved agricultural productivity and military capabilities, laying the foundation for the expansion and influence of Celtic culture in the following centuries. The art of the Hallstatt period is characterized by geometric patterns, intricate metalwork, and the use of animal motifs. These designs would later evolve into the more elaborate and distinctive styles of the Latine period. Artifacts such as swords, shields, and jewelry provide insight into the aesthetics and craftsmanship of the Hallstatt people. As the Hallstatt culture began to decline, it was succeeded by the Latine culture, named after the site of Latine on Lake Neuchâtel in Switzerland. This period marks the height of Celtic cultural development, with the Celts expanding across much of Europe. The Latine culture spread rapidly, with Celtic tribes establishing settlements from the British Isles to the Iberian Peninsula and as far east as present-day Turkey. This expansion was driven by a combination of trade, migration, and military conquest. The Celts were known for their mobility, with warrior elites leading their tribes to new territories and establishing dominance over local populations. The Latine period saw a flowering of Celtic art, characterized by curvilinear designs, complex patterns, and an emphasis on natural forms. Metalwork reached new heights, with the production of intricate jewelry, weaponry, and ceremonial objects. The Latine style is immediately recognizable and has come to symbolize Celtic identity in the popular imagination. The Latine Celts continued to innovate in metalworking, producing weapons and tools that were both functional and highly decorative. The use of iron remained central, but there was also extensive work in gold, silver, and bronze. Advances in agriculture, construction, and transportation supported the growth of large, fortified settlements known as oppida, which became centers of trade and power. Celtic society was complex and multifaceted, with a strong emphasis on kinship, tribal loyalty, and social status. The Celts were organized into tribes, each with its own territory, leadership, and customs. The basic unit of Celtic society was the tribe, or tuath in Irish, consisting of several extended families. Each tribe was led by a chieftain, who was supported by a council of nobles and druids. These leaders were responsible for maintaining order, administering justice, and leading the tribe in war. Druids held a special place in Celtic society as priests, judges, and scholars. They were responsible for religious rituals, education, and the transmission of knowledge. Bards, on the other hand, were the keepers of oral tradition, preserving the history and legends of the tribe through song and poetry. Warriors were highly esteemed, with their prowess in battle determining their status and influence within the tribe. While Celtic society was patriarchal, women in some tribes enjoyed a degree of freedom and influence unusual for the ancient world. They could own property, choose their husbands, and in some cases, lead their tribes. Legendary figures like Queen Boudica of the Iceni are testament to the potential power and leadership roles women could attain. Celtic religion was deeply intertwined with nature and the cycles of the seasons. The Celts worshipped a pantheon of gods and goddesses, each associated with specific aspects of life and the natural world. The Celtic gods and goddesses were numerous and varied from tribe to tribe. Some of the most widely worshipped deities included Lugh, the god of light and craftsmanship, Danu, the mother goddess, and Cernunnos, the horned god of animals and fertility. The Celts also venerated local spirits and ancestors, believing in a world where the divine and the mortal realms were closely connected. Druids were the intermediaries between the gods and the people. They conducted rituals, offered sacrifices, and interpreted omens. Sacred groves, rivers, and mountains were often the sites of worship, reflecting the Celts' deep connection to the natural world. Human sacrifice, though rare, was sometimes practiced, particularly in times of great need or crisis. The Celts built few temples, preferring to worship in natural settings. However, certain sites, such as Stonehenge, may have held religious significance. Festivals like Samhain, the precursor to Halloween, marked important points in the agricultural calendar and were occasions for feasting, ritual, and the renewal of communal bonds. Celtic art and craftsmanship were highly developed, with a focus on intricate design and symbolic meaning. The Celts were skilled metalworkers, producing a wide range of objects that were both functional and decorative. The Celts were master metalworkers, creating ornate jewelry, weapons, and armor. Gold torques, worn as symbols of status and power, are among the most famous Celtic artifacts. These pieces often featured elaborate patterns, including spirals, knots, and zoomorphic designs, which held symbolic meaning and reflected the Celts' view of the interconnectedness of life. Stone carving was another important aspect of Celtic art, with the production of large, intricately decorated crosses, stelae, and other monuments. These carvings often depicted scenes from mythology, religious symbols, or abstract designs. In some regions, such as in Ireland and Scotland, the tradition of stone carving persisted into the Christian era, leading to the creation of high crosses adorned with biblical scenes and Celtic motifs. These stone monuments served both religious and commemorative purposes, linking the past with the present in the Celtic imagination. Textile production was a vital part of Celtic craftsmanship, with the Celts known for their weaving and dyeing techniques. Wool was the most commonly used material, but linen and other fibers were also employed. The Celts were particularly skilled at creating tartans, patterns of crisscrossed horizontal and vertical bands in multiple colors, which have become synonymous with Scottish and Irish heritage. Clothing was not only functional but also a marker of identity and status, with brightly colored tunics, cloaks, and trousers indicating wealth and social rank. The Celts had a rich oral tradition, and while they left few written records, their language and storytelling traditions have had a lasting impact on European culture. The Celtic languages are divided into two main branches, Goidelic, Gaelic, which includes Irish, Scottish Gaelic, and Manx and Brythonic, which includes Welsh, Breton, and Cornish. These languages evolved from a common Proto-Celtic language spoken by the early Celts. Though they have undergone significant changes over the centuries, these languages are still spoken today, representing a living link to the ancient Celtic world. Storytelling was central to Celtic culture, with bards and filled, poet-seers, playing a key role in preserving and transmitting the history, mythology, and laws of their people. The Celts believed that the spoken word had great power, and their oral traditions were carefully maintained and passed down through generations. Epic tales like the Irish Táin Bua Cailnge and the Welsh Mabinogion are testaments to the richness of Celtic mythology and literature. These stories often blended history, legend, and morality, providing both entertainment and education. Daily life in Celtic society was shaped by the rhythms of the natural world and the demands of a largely agrarian economy. However, the Celts also engaged in trade, craftsmanship, and warfare, making their lives diverse and dynamic. Celtic homes varied in size and structure depending on region and status. Most people lived in roundhouses made of wattle and daub with thatched roofs. These houses were often clustered together in small villages or farmsteads, surrounded by fields and pastures. In more fortified regions, the Celts built hill forts, which served as both defensive structures and centers of trade and governance. These hill forts were often strategically located on high ground, offering protection against invaders and a vantage point over the surrounding landscape. Agriculture was the backbone of Celtic society, with most people working as farmers. The Celts cultivated a variety of crops, including barley, wheat, oats, and vegetables, and raised livestock such as cattle, sheep, pigs, and horses. They practiced crop rotation and used iron tools to improve agricultural productivity. Food was central to social life, with feasts playing a significant role in communal gatherings. The Celts had a diverse diet that included bread, meat, dairy products, and beer, the latter being a particularly popular beverage. Clothing in Celtic society was both practical and a symbol of identity. Men typically wore tunics and trousers, while women wore long dresses, often with a cloak or shawl. The use of colorful dyes, patterns, and jewelry distinguished the wealthy from the common folk. Both men and women adorned themselves with jewelry such as brooches, torques, and bracelets, which were often intricately designed and made from precious metals. The Celts were not confined to one area, but were known for their migrations and expansions across Europe, leaving a lasting impact on many regions. The migration of Celtic tribes into the British Isles began in the first millennium BC, with groups settling in what is now Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and England. These migrations brought with them the distinct Latin culture, which would profoundly shape the history and identity of the British Isles. The Celts established tribal kingdoms, each with its own leadership and traditions, leading to a rich tapestry of cultures that still resonates today. The Celts also spread into the Iberian Peninsula, where they merged with local populations to form the Celtiberians. These tribes became known for their fierce independence and warrior culture, resisting both Carthaginian and Roman encroachments for centuries. In Italy, the Celts, known as the Gauls, settled in the Po Valley and frequently clashed with the burgeoning Roman Republic. The sack of Rome by the Gauls in 390 BC remains one of the most infamous episodes in Roman history and demonstrated the Celts' formidable military prowess. One of the most remarkable migrations was the movement of the Galatians, a Celtic tribe that crossed into Asia Minor, modern-day Turkey, in the 3rd century BC. They established a powerful kingdom in the central part of the region, which came to be known as Galatia. The Galatians maintained their Celtic identity for several centuries, even as they adopted aspects of Hellenistic culture. Their presence in Asia Minor is a testament to the wide-ranging influence of Celtic migration and settlement. The Celts were renowned warriors, and their military prowess was a key factor in their expansion across Europe. Celtic warfare was characterized by its emphasis on individual heroism, skilled use of weapons, and innovative tactics. The Celts were skilled metalworkers, producing weapons and armor that were both functional and artistically adorned. Swords were the primary weapon of the Celtic warrior, often beautifully crafted with intricate patterns on the blades and hilts. The Celts also used spears, axes, and slings in battle. Their armor included chainmail, helmets, and shields, with the latter often featuring elaborate designs that were as much about display as defense. The famous Battersea Shield, discovered in the River Thames, is a prime example of Celtic artistry and craftsmanship in warfare. Celtic warfare was marked by its emphasis on speed, mobility, and surprise. The Celts were known for their use of chariots in battle, a practice that astonished the Romans when they encountered it in Britain. These chariots allowed for rapid movement across the battlefield, enabling warriors to strike quickly and retreat before the enemy could respond. Celtic warriors were also known for their ferocity and psychological warfare, including the use of war cries, tattoos, and elaborate hairstyles to intimidate their opponents. Throughout their history, the Celts were involved in numerous conflicts, both among themselves and with other peoples. The Battle of Allia in 390 BC, where the Gauls defeated the Roman army and sacked Rome, is one of the most famous examples of Celtic military success. In Britain, the Celtic resistance to Roman invasion, particularly under the leadership of figures like Caratacus and Boudicca, became legendary. These conflicts showcased both the strengths and vulnerabilities of Celtic military strategies and highlighted their determination to defend their lands and way of life. The Celts were not isolated but interacted with many other cultures through trade, warfare, and diplomacy. These interactions had a profound impact on Celtic society, leading to both the exchange of ideas and the incorporation of foreign influences. The Celts were part of an extensive trade network that connected them with other cultures across Europe and beyond. They traded goods such as salt, metals, textiles, and pottery with the Greeks, Etruscans, and later the Romans. These exchanges brought not only wealth but also new ideas, technologies, and artistic styles to Celtic societies. The Celts were particularly known for their craftsmanship in metal, producing highly sought-after items that were traded far and wide. Through their interactions with other cultures, the Celts absorbed and adapted various elements into their own society. For example, the influence of Greek and Etruscan art is evident in some Latin artifacts, which incorporate motifs and techniques from these Mediterranean cultures. The Celts also adopted aspects of Roman culture, particularly in the areas of governance and military organization, though they often blended these elements with their own traditions. The Celts engaged in diplomacy with their neighbors, forming alliances and treaties to secure their interests. Celtic mercenaries were highly valued by other cultures, including the Egyptians, Carthaginians, and Greeks, for their skills in battle. These mercenaries often served as both soldiers and diplomats, helping to forge connections between Celtic tribes and the broader Mediterranean world. Celtic warriors were highly prized as mercenaries by many ancient civilizations, from Greece to Egypt. Their reputation as fierce and skilled fighters made them sought after by kings and generals looking to bolster their armies. Celtic mercenaries served in various foreign armies, bringing their unique combat skills to battles far from their homelands. They fought for the Carthaginians during the Punic Wars, for the Greek city-states during the Hellenistic period, and even for the Ptolemaic rulers of Egypt. The Celts' prowess in battle, particularly their use of chariots and their fearsome reputation, made them a valuable asset in conflicts across the ancient world. The involvement of Celtic mercenaries in foreign conflicts had a reciprocal impact, as they brought back knowledge of different military tactics and technologies to their own tribes. This exchange of ideas contributed to the evolution of Celtic warfare and helped the Celts maintain their military edge in a rapidly changing world. Their service abroad also strengthened connections between the Celts and other cultures, facilitating the exchange of goods, ideas, and technologies. The expansion of the Roman Empire brought the Celts into direct conflict with one of the most powerful and organized military forces in history. The Romans viewed the Celts as both a threat and an opportunity, seeking to conquer their lands and incorporate them into the empire. The conquest of Gaul by Julius Caesar in the 1st century BC was one of the most significant events in Celtic history. Over several years of brutal warfare, Caesar systematically subdued the various Gallic tribes, using a combination of military might, diplomacy, and divide-and-conquer tactics. The fall of the powerful Arverni tribe, led by Vercingetorix, at the Battle of Alesia in 52 BC, marked the end of organized resistance in Gaul and the beginning of Roman domination in the region. In Britain, the Roman conquest met with fierce resistance from the local Celtic tribes. The invasion began in 43 CE under Emperor Claudius, and while the Romans quickly established control over much of southern Britain, they faced ongoing resistance in the north and west. The most famous uprising was led by Boudicca, queen of the Iceni, who united several tribes in a revolt that resulted in the destruction of Roman cities like Camulodunum, Colchester, and Londinium, London, before being ultimately crushed by the Roman legions. Ireland, meanwhile, remained outside the reach of Roman control, preserving its distinct Celtic culture well into the medieval period. The process of Romanization involved the integration of Celtic societies into the Roman Empire. This included the adoption of Roman laws, language, and customs, as well as the construction of Roman-style cities, roads, and fortifications. While some aspects of Celtic culture were suppressed or lost, others were adapted and survived within the new Roman context. In many regions, a hybrid Romano-Celtic culture emerged, blending elements of both traditions. Despite the power of Rome, Celtic resistance was persistent and, in some cases, remarkably successful. The Celts' guerrilla tactics, knowledge of the terrain, and ability to inspire local support made them formidable opponents. The Celts often employed guerrilla tactics against the Romans, using their knowledge of the local landscape to launch surprise attacks, ambushes, and raids. These tactics allowed them to inflict significant damage on Roman forces, even when outnumbered and outgunned. The mountainous and forested terrain of regions like Scotland and Wales provided natural defenses that the Celts used to their advantage, making it difficult for the Romans to establish complete control. Notable leaders include Caratacus, who resisted Roman expansion in Wales, and Vercingetorix, who led the Gauls in their final stand against Caesar. These leaders became symbols of Celtic defiance and courage, celebrated in both ancient and modern literature. In Scotland, known to the Romans as Caledonia, the resistance was particularly strong. The Picts, a confederation of Celtic tribes, successfully resisted Roman control, even after the construction of Hadrian's Wall. Similarly, Ireland, which was never fully conquered by Rome, remained a bastion of Celtic culture and tradition. The preservation of Celtic customs, language, and art in these regions provided a foundation for the Celtic revival in later centuries. The Roman conquest had a profound impact on Celtic society, leading to significant changes in governance, economy, and culture. While some aspects of Celtic life were lost, others were transformed or preserved in new forms. Roman rule brought significant changes to the political structure of Celtic societies. The traditional tribal system was replaced by Roman administrative units, and local chieftains were often co-opted into the Roman system as client kings or officials. Roman law and governance structures were imposed, leading to the decline of the traditional Druidic legal system. However, in some regions, elements of Celtic governance were retained, particularly in more remote or less Romanized areas. The Roman presence introduced new economic practices, including the use of coinage, the development of urban centers, and the expansion of trade networks. Roman towns, known as civitas, became hubs of commerce and administration, often built on or near existing Celtic settlements. These towns introduced new architectural styles, public amenities like baths and theaters, and a more organized urban layout. However, the rural Celtic economy, based on agriculture and local craft production, continued alongside these developments. While Romanization led to the decline of certain aspects of Celtic culture, it also facilitated the preservation and transformation of others. Roman influence can be seen in the hybridization of art, religion, and language, with Celtic motifs appearing in Roman contexts and vice versa. Christianity, which began to spread in Celtic regions during the Roman period, would later play a crucial role in preserving Celtic identity, particularly through the monastic tradition and the production of illuminated manuscripts like the Book of Kells. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century CE, the Celtic regions of Europe entered a new phase of history. While some areas were heavily influenced by the Germanic tribes that replaced Roman rule, others retained a strong Celtic identity. The spread of Christianity in the post-Roman period led to the development of a distinct Celtic church, particularly in Ireland and Wales. This church was characterized by its monastic tradition, with monasteries becoming centers of learning, art, and spirituality. Monks played a crucial role in preserving and transmitting Celtic culture, as well as in the broader Christianization of Europe. Figures like St. Patrick in Ireland and St. Columba in Scotland are celebrated for their missionary work and the establishment of monasteries that became cultural and religious hubs. The Arthurian legend, which emerged in the post-Roman period, has deep roots in Celtic mythology and history. King Arthur, often depicted as a Romano-British leader fighting against Saxon invaders, became a symbol of resistance and the enduring legacy of the Celts. The legends of the Round Table, the quest for the Holy Grail, and the mystical figure of Merlin all draw on earlier Celtic traditions, blending them with Christian and medieval themes. These stories have continued to captivate imaginations and have kept aspects of Celtic culture alive in the popular consciousness. In the British Isles, Celtic culture survived in the regions that resisted or were less affected by Anglo-Saxon and later Norman conquest. Ireland, Scotland, and Wales retained their Celtic languages, traditions, and a strong sense of identity. In Brittany, the migration of Britons fleeing the Anglo-Saxon invasions of Britain led to the establishment of a distinct Breton culture that preserved many elements of Celtic tradition. These regions became bastions of Celtic survival, preserving their unique heritage well into the modern era. The 19th and 20th centuries saw a resurgence of interest in Celtic culture, known as the Celtic Revival. This movement sought to reclaim and celebrate the cultural heritage of the Celts, particularly in the face of growing industrialization and the loss of traditional ways of life. The Celtic Revival was closely linked to the broader Romantic movement, which emphasized the importance of nature, history, and the imagination. In Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, the revival was also tied to nationalist movements that sought to assert cultural and political independence from British rule. The rediscovery and celebration of Celtic art, literature, and language became a means of expressing national identity and pride. The Celtic Revival had a significant impact on literature and the arts. Writers such as William Butler Yeats and Lady Gregory in Ireland, and the Scottish novelist Sir Walter Scott, drew on Celtic themes and folklore in their work. The revival also influenced visual arts, with artists exploring traditional Celtic motifs and styles in new and innovative ways. The revival of traditional music and dance further contributed to the reawakening of Celtic cultural identity. Efforts to preserve and revive Celtic languages, such as Irish, Welsh, and Breton, were a key part of the Celtic Revival. These efforts included the establishment of schools, the publication of literature, and the promotion of language use in public life. While these languages remain endangered, the revival helped to stem their decline and ensured that they continue to be spoken and taught today. Cultural festivals, such as the National Eisteddfod in Wales, celebrate Celtic heritage and keep traditions alive. Today, the legacy of the Celts is celebrated and preserved in many ways, from festivals and music to academic research and cultural tourism. Celtic festivals, such as the Festival Interceltique de Loriat in Brittany and the Pan-Celtic Festival in Ireland, bring together people from across the Celtic nations to celebrate their shared heritage. These events feature traditional music, dance, and crafts, as well as contemporary interpretations of Celtic culture. Celtic music, in particular, has gained international popularity, with artists such as Enya, the Chieftains, and Lorna McKinnon bringing traditional sounds to global audiences. The study of Celtic history, language, and culture continues to be a vibrant field of academic research. Archaeologists, historians, and linguists work to uncover new insights into the ancient Celts, from the discovery of artifacts and sites to the analysis of ancient texts. This research not only deepens our understanding of the Celts, but also helps to preserve their legacy for future generations. Celtic heritage sites, such as Newgrange in Ireland, Stonehenge in England, and the Hill of Tara in Ireland, attract visitors from around the world. These sites, along with museums and cultural centers, play a crucial role in educating the public about Celtic history and culture. Tourism has become an important way of sustaining interest in Celtic heritage and supporting the communities that maintain these traditions. The story of the Celts is one of resilience, creativity, and enduring influence. From their mysterious origins to their interactions with the mighty Roman Empire, and from their rich cultural contributions to their modern-day revival, the Celts have left an indelible mark on the history of Europe. Their legacy can be seen not only in the landscapes and languages of the regions they once inhabited, but also in the art, literature, and music that continue to celebrate their unique identity.